Welcome. Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? So very nice to have you here. And today I wanted to speak a little bit about our upcoming February intensive. It begins on February 16th. Unworthiness and doubt. Removing the last obstacles before awakening. I heard Papaji say that when I was in India, in Lucknow, sitting with Papaji in Satsang. I heard him speak about that. I heard him speak about unworthiness being the last bastion before awakening, the last stronghold before awakening. And there are many elements that come into that. One of them is just essentially the ego mind. I really likes to be something or somebody, that can manifest as over the top somebody, that can manifest just as somebody, or it can manifest as somebody less than. Sometimes things like humbleness or unworthiness can become like the dress that the ego mind I is wearing, So look at me, I'm so unworthy, right? However, there may be some deeper layers to that unworthiness. Trauma past, where erroneously, obviously, mistakenly, we have believed that something is wrong with us. There may be some religious or spiritual conditioning. Sometimes we don't even remember, all the different things we have heard or learned or were told, about how we need to become worthy of truth or worthy of being spiritual and so on and so forth. And there's some truth to it, but not in that way. Not in that way of unworthiness, right? It's more in a way of knowing and realizing, experiencing and believing that who we are is just absolutely okay. There's also that fundamental misunderstanding, or maybe the fundamental feature of the ego I mind, which in its core is never really feeling complete. That's its very feature, and that's independent of if the expression of the I is grandiose or if it's less than. At the core, the I, ego mind, doesn't really ever feel complete because it is a separate object, you see. And the only wholeness and completion to that can be found in realizing our true nature, right? In going beyond that identification. That's why, that last obstacle, that last stronghold in which we still believe that, there's something is not right. In our last intensive, I was speaking more about trauma, about the mechanics of trauma. There's a lot, of course, to say about it, but one important element, the resolve, is not in the trauma vortex. The resolution, the healing, is not in the trauma vortex. It's not in the abyss into which we slide when trauma past is re-triggered or present. It is in being here. And that is so powerful, right? To realize that, like with anything else, even with unworthiness, and even if the core of it is around wrongness or trauma or mistaken beliefs, really, fundamentally we can begin addressing it like we are addressing anything else. And that is recognize it for what it is. Number one, this is the past. Number two, can I be present to it? Can I allow this to not to have to fix it, change it, make it any different, suppress it, for it to become different in any way? Can I be present to that? so that we can realize that it is just another belief, another notion that arises here. As powerful as this might be because of the content, as easy to follow as it might be because of the content, but that's what it is. That's all it is. Another notion. Can I be present here? And then we can realize, that the inherent emptiness of that. And again, we can realize the inherent okayness of everything. And we can really come to the true wholeness or fullness, which really means realizing the oneness of our true nature. So I'm very much looking forward to our time together. As often or as usual, the first week is free for new students. Also a special pricing for all 3 weeks for new students. I want to invite you to participate. And also, if you are enjoying these videos, please like and share and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. It helps us to make this more visible. It helps more people to benefit from this.